In sections 8.3 and 8.4, we are going to continue looking at what happens when we multiply polynomials. Now, last chapter, we learned how to multiply two monomials together. We learned that you multiply the coefficients and you add the exponents. So 3xy to the fifth times 4x squared y to the first is 12x to the third y to the sixth. Another example of that, multiplying negative 2x squared times 3x to the first would be negative 6x to the third. And then in sections 8.2, just recently, we learned how to multiply a monomial by either a binomial or a trinomial, which what we did is we distributed. We took 3x squared and multiplied it by x and by 1 to get 3x to the third plus 3x to the second. Or another example, we multiply negative 3x by all three terms in this trinomial. So negative 3x times 2x squared is negative 6x to the third. Negative 3x times negative 4x is positive 12x to the second. Negative 3x times 5 is negative 15x. In sections 8.3 and 8.4, we are going to learn how to multiply two binomials together. So instead of just multiplying by a monomial, we're going to multiply by a binomial. We're also going to look at what happens if we even extend that further into trinomials and larger polynomials. So how do we do this? Instead of distributing a single term when multiplying by a binomial, we are distributing the entire binomial. So that means that when I multiply x plus 2 times x plus 5, I'm taking x plus 2 and I'm distributing that entire expression and multiplying it by x and multiplying it by the 5, which in turn means x is being multiplied by the x, 2 is being multiplied by x is being multiplied by 5, and 2 is being multiplied by 5. So when I take the product of these two binomials, I end up with 4 separate terms. And then we can simplify from there. We end up with two terms here that are like terms and can be combined to give us a final answer of x squared plus 7x plus 10. This process can be referred to as FOIL. FOIL is simply a way to remember what order you should be multiplying your binomials. Okay, FOIL stands for first, outside, inside, last. So we start out by multiplying the first two terms. So I multiply x and x. That gives me x squared. Next, I multiply my outside terms, x times 5. I now have plus 5x to add to that. Next, I do my inside terms, which would be 2 times x, which would be 2x. And then last, I multiply the last terms, the 2 and the 5, which is 10. We can see here that this answer would then simplify by combining our middle two terms. It would be x squared plus 7x plus 10 would be the resulting polynomial. Use FOIL if it helps you remember what order to multiply. Keep in mind though, this is just multiplication. FOIL only technically works, following that order only works if you're multiplying two binomials. And we are going to go past that. We're going to look at what happens when we multiply a binomial and a trinomial as well, or even larger polynomials. So keep that in mind, but FOIL is a great place to start. Multiply your first terms, outside terms, inside terms, last terms. Let's practice some of these. I want to multiply these two binomials. So I start with my first. X times 2x is 2x squared. Okay, and then I take that first term and go to my outside term. x times 3, which would be plus 3x. Now I'll do negative 8 times 2x, which would be minus 16x, and negative 8 times 3, which is negative 24. Combine our like terms, which are my middle two terms here. I have 2x squared minus 13x minus 24. Next example, multiply 3x and x. 3x squared. 3x times 7 plus 21x. Negative 4 times x minus 4x. Negative 4 times 7 minus 28. Combine your middle. 3x squared plus 17x minus 28. Okay, so now we're going to look at what happens if I throw a trinomial into the mix. So when you are distributing, you are taking the first term in your first parenthesis, and you want to multiply that by the first term in your second parenthesis. So the first term of your polynomial by the first term of your second polynomial. So x squared times x gives me x to the third. Next, we're going to again use x squared, but multiply it by the second term in that second polynomial. So that would be minus x squared. Next, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the negative 3x, and we're going to multiply that by x, which gives me minus 3x squared. Then take the negative 3x and multiply by negative 1, which would be plus 3x. Okay, and then we're moving on to the 4. Multiply the 4 by the x, which is plus 4x. Multiply the 4 by the 1, which would be plus 4. Then we combine any like terms to get our final answer. X cubed does not combine. We need to combine negative 1x squared minus 3x squared, which would be negative 4x squared. Combine 3x and 4x, which would be plus 7x, and then we have plus 4 on the end. Okay, same idea on this next example. We're multiplying now. Instead, the order's changed a little bit. We're multiplying a binomial by a trinomial. So we'll start with the 7x, and we distribute that to the first term of our second polynomial to get 7x to the third. We'll distribute that 7x again to the second term of the second polynomial, which gives me minus 35x to the second. And again, we're going to take the 7x and distribute it to the third term of our second polynomial, which would be plus 21x. Next, we're going to move to the 2, and we're going to multiply the 2 by the x squared, so plus 2x squared. And then we're going to multiply the 2 by the negative 5x, so minus 10x, and multiply the 2 by the 3, which would be plus 6. Now we want to combine our like terms. 7x cubed does not combine with anything. Negative 35x squared plus 2x squared would be minus 33x squared. And then 21x minus 10x would be plus 11x. Bring down the constant from the end, plus 6. So similar to what we did in 8.2, you are multiplying and then you're combining any like terms that you can.